Keep folks too late from dinner, so I will get started. We are recording this conversation, so it will be available on our YouTube after probably tomorrow. Good evening. Thank you to all for joining us this evening. My name is Julie Ty, and I'm president of the New York League of Conservation Voters Education Fund. Our mission is to educate, engage, and empower New Yorkers to be effective advocates for the environment. We equip voters with information about climate and sustainability issues and encourage them to hold candidates accountable to their promises. This critical election season, we are also encouraging people to vote early for the environment. Early voting is easy and safe, and it starts on Saturday, October 23rd, and it runs through Sunday, October 31st. And of course, Election Day is on Tuesday, November 2nd. The town of Huntington is a community with an iconic waterfront and home to many great parks and open spaces. It is also a climate frontline community as it relates to sea level rise and the powerful storms caused by a changing climate. Coastal resiliency is a key concern as it impacts economic development, our quality of life, and our natural environment. Other challenges facing the town include excessive nitrogen into our local harbors, bays, and the Long Island Sound, promoting a clean energy economy with good union jobs, environmental justice, and cleaner transportation. We look forward to speaking with the candidates about these issues tonight and more with your input. Because this is a virtual forum, let me go over some of the ground rules before we start. This is a forum and not a debate, and as such, the candidates will be appearing separately and sequentially. We'll be guided by a 2-minute rule, which is a limit for all candidate responses during the opening and closing statements and during our question round. Our timekeeper, Caroline, will flash a yellow card when there are 30 seconds remaining and a red card when we're at time. And remember, these are time limits and they are not suggestions. You do not have to use the entire time. We ask that candidates keep their responses to a New York minute or two. Midway through the question period, we'll have a lightning round of questions that require very short responses, often one word. We also have time. We'll also have time, we hope, for audience and partner suggested questions. So please take a moment to submit your questions via the Q&A function by 5:30. After we conclude with our first candidate, we'll hear from our second and then our third candidate, following the same format using the same questions. We're holding this forum to make sure that the environment is top of mind for candidates and voters, and I want to take a moment to thank the partners who will be serving as our panelists this evening. Adrian Esposito from Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Eric Alexander from Vision Long Island, and Mariah Dignan from Climate Jobs New York. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce our first candidate. Ed Smyth is going to be our first candidate, so please introduce yourself, and then we'll get started on questions.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for hosting this event this evening. I truly appreciate the opportunity. I'm Ed Smyth. I'm running for Huntington Town Supervisor on a platform of continued investment in infrastructure in the town of Huntington, specifically on our sewer treatment plant, upgrading, expansion of the sewer lines and the network of pipes in the town and in Centerport, including storm drains, waterfront bulkheads, our docks, upgrading the town's vehicles, and stopping overdevelopment, specifically in our downtown areas, which would alleviate the traffic congestion, which has been a concern throughout the town, and encouraging more people to use mass transit. I am a lifelong resident of the town of Huntington. My wife and I chose to raise our 4 children here. We want to keep Huntington a place where our children will return to. I currently practice law on Main Street in Huntington Village, where I have for the last 24 years. I am on the town board currently, and I am the deputy supervisor. I'm also a Marine Corps Staff Sergeant veteran. I bring a leadership style that is very direct. I offer clear directions and clear metrics on how success is going to be measured and how failures is measured as well, so that nobody is surprised and I don't bring drama to the job. I'm very dry-eyed. I offer very dry-eyed accountability for the work that's being performed. Operationally, my goal is to streamline processes within the town, within Town Hall, putting as much online as possible, bringing a more robust IT department to the town, but still providing over-the-counter service where it is necessary. Our town has been very well run for the past 4 years through, as measured by objective metrics, including continuing to have a AAA bond rating, to have a flat budget under the tax cap, next year's budget 2022 is still flat, and also having a zero fiscal stress rating from the New York State Comptroller's Office. But with that, I welcome your questions and look forward to answering them.
Great. To ask our first question, we have Adrian Esposito from Citizens Campaign for the Environment. You're on mute.
He's on mute.
You would think after 1,000 of these, I would know not to be on mute. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for everyone for participating. How are you, Ed? It's nice to see you.
Nice to see you too. Thank you.
I think this is an easy one for you. It's kind of a softball, but if you could please start your answer with either a yes or a no, and then you can give greater detail. But
Okay.
the Northport Harbor Water Quality Protection Committee was established in the year 2010. The co-chairs are the Huntington Town Supervisor and myself. Under previous administrations, the committee was very active and engaged in advancing water quality protection for the Huntington Northport Harbor complex there. The committee's gone dormant over the last 4 or 5 years. So the question to you is, will you commit to going back to holding, regular meetings? And by regular, it could be twice a year, frankly. But meetings of that Northport Harbor Water Quality Protection Committee, as the town supervisor and as a co-chair, will you commit to holding those meetings again so we can reinvigorate efforts and protections of advancing water quality in the marine environment?
Yes, and I'll go one better. I would say at the very least it should be a monthly meeting, and the reason why we have a tremendous waterfront. It is one of the driving forces in the town as far as economically, recreationally, and it's one of the things that not to sound too fluffy, but it's one of the things that makes Huntington great, and it's really a draw. And the water quality in Huntington has diminished over the last several decades. I attribute that almost entirely to both overdevelopment, stormwater runoff, and surface runoff through fertilizers. And everybody blames dog waste, but I think that's a very over-encompassing, oversold thing. I think it's more fertilizer from surface runoff that's the problem, and road wash is a huge problem. But I think one of the bigger problems is that the sewage treatment plant, the outflow from the sewage treatment plant is a major contributor to the pollution in our waterways. I think we should continue to upgrade it. And even though it does it's a state-of-the-art facility, does a very good job at cleaning sewage and minimizing pollutants, it's still not Poland spring water coming out of the other end of that sewage treatment plant. So the more that goes in, even though it is treated, the more that goes in, the more that comes out the other end into our harbors. So I would look to upgrade the sewage treatment plant as much as possible, but also to minimize the development that increases the flow into the waterways.
Great.
Thank you,
Ed. Our next question will come from Eric Alexander from Vision Long Island.
Hey, Councilman, how are you?
Good
to see you today. Thank you for participating in this. This is great. I'm kind of moving into an area of sustainability that isn't direct environment, but affordable housing is part of any kind of sustainable future. And my question's kind of simple, but if you could give a specific action you'd take on this, I'll just read it off as I presented it to the folks at LCV. The exodus from New York City due to coronavirus regulations and public safety concerns has ratcheted up the cost of housing that was already unaffordable for most working people in the town of Huntington. So really, what strategies, policies, plans, or zoning, or some combination of all those, would you put in place to directly increase the affordable housing stock in the town of Huntington? I know you mentioned overdevelopment in the downtowns, but then where would you want to see development, and what's your vision on affordability?
Good question. Thank you. I'll try to get it all in 2 minutes, but so that's a lot to unpack. Well,
I know.
First of all, I think I'll start by saying I don't think that the affordable housing plan that we have and system that we have in the town of Huntington right now works. It was a good effort, but it's not working. It's never going to catch up to the demand that we have for affordable housing in the town. Right now, we get about, on average, 10 to 20 units that come online or become available every year. That doesn't even scratch the surface of what's necessary. So I would look to transition the affordable housing plan from a lottery system that's in place right now to an affordable housing trust fund system. And what that would encompass is when a developer comes in right now, they get 20% of the new units, if they get a zone change, 20% of the new units have to be designated as affordable. What I would do is I would still designate 20%, but I wouldn't make them necessarily affordable on the retail side. I would tell the developer, sell every unit at market rate. However, those 20% units, the difference in the profit margin per se would be taken and deposited into an affordable housing trust fund. So for example, Harborfields Estates here in Greenlawn, a few years ago, they had 2 affordable units that were mandated in that development. They sold at an affordable rate to 2 lucky lottery winners for about $300,000 each. Retail, the market rate for those homes in that community went anywhere from $900,000 to $1.1 million for each house in that community. So you had about a $600,000 delta per unit. So you had 2 lucky lottery winners, good for them. However, I think what would have been a far greater use of that development would have been sell all the houses at market rate, pay the developer the $300,000 for the cost of the construction, the lumber and the labor for those 2 affordable units, and then take the $600,000 from each unit when it's sold and deposit it into an affordable housing trust fund, which would have netted, in that example, $1.2 million, which could have then been apportioned out in, I'm using rough numbers, but apportioned out in $50,000 increments, okay, which would have benefited 24 families with a $50,000 down payment assistance loan that they could have gone out into the marketplace and shopped for a home retail without having to go through a lottery system that only benefits 2 people when it would be a much greater benefit by doing it through a trust fund that allows for an apportionment. As far as development in the town of Huntington, I think that the only place you're going to see large scale development in the town of Huntington in the next 5 to 10 years is going to be down in the Melville area. The town right now is fully developed in the sense that there's virtually no place in the town that you're going to start a new development unless you're going to take something else down. Okay, so there's no open space available for development in the town right now. The only place that you're going to see that on a large scale is in Melville, where you have these office buildings that, due to coronavirus, if you asked me this question 10 months ago, I would have given you a different answer, but I now believe those office buildings are now dinosaurs. I don't see us going back to a traditional 40-hour work week that we once had. And I've come to that realization only in the last 5 or 6 months, but I don't believe it's coming back. I think those buildings are dinosaurs. And I think the only open space, and it's not the traditional definition of open space, but now parking lots are open space. So I think you're going to see any kind of large scale development. You see, did I just see the red card go up?
Yes, yes.
Oh, sorry, I got the, sorry. But there will be spot development around the town, but the only large scale area for development, the only practical place you're going to see is going to be down in the Melville area, the office parks.
All right. Thank you for that answer. Our next question comes from Mariah Dignan from Climate Jobs New York.
Thank you. Hello, Councilman. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Speaking of large-scale development, Long Island is poised to play a central role in the burgeoning offshore wind industry. And as the Build Back Better agenda is being passed on the federal level, what are your priorities in supporting a clean energy economy with good union jobs as supervisor?
Well, to begin with, even though I am a Republican, if we get that, if the feds pass that infrastructure bill, I will be Chuck Schumer's biggest cheerleader. I'll get my pom-poms on and say, show us the money here in Huntington, because I don't care what your political affiliation is. Infrastructure is infrastructure, and it's very expensive. And I'll take the money from Chuck Schumer, our home state senator. He's the head of the Senate right now, so I want him to bring home the federal money. I would spend that money first on sewers. My priority for infrastructure in the town is a sewer line connecting through Huntington Station right now. There's a gap in our sewer line from the Huntington train station south to the Walt Whitman Mall. There's about a 3-mile stretch where there's no sewer line, and there's no capital investment in that area right now, and there should be. Just touching on the wind farm and wind energy that you mentioned, I fully support it, and I think there should be wind energy. I would welcome it in the town of Huntington. I don't know that we have the wind power to warrant windmills here in Huntington, but if we did, you could put one in front of town hall, and all the wind, the hot air might be enough to generate electricity. But I fully support wind power. But from a infrastructure and sustainability standpoint, my priority is sewers and storm drains. I think we have more of a both waterways and water quality. Drinking water, salt water is a priority. That we have a real problem with our drinking water on Long Island, and we have a rapidly growing waterways problem.
All right. I'm going to ask a few lightning round questions. So these should be super brief, and then we'll go back to more. I think we'll have time for lots of questions. So these are meant to be very short. Do you compost?
Yes.
Right.
Full confession, my wife does, but I do as well. She's the one that maintains it.
That's okay. You're still putting your food scraps aside, so thank you. How do you prefer to travel around Long Island?
Again, I was a car guy. Full confession, I had the coolest Corvette in the world, but I now have a Tesla, and I am as a reformed muscle car guy, I love the Tesla. And by the way, for anybody that doubts it, that a Tesla would blow the doors off a Corvette, and without spinning the tires, by the way, which is also a big deal. I was very skeptical, but I got into this thing, and I am a true believer. I love this car.
There's an electric Mustang now, so don't worry.
What's that?
There's an electric Mustang now.
I looked at that, but we almost signed up. We were literally at the dealership to sign for the Mustang, the Mach 1, I think it's called. Very bluntly, that it's not ready for prime time, and it just doesn't have the range, and it doesn't have the recharge timing. And the Tesla, honestly, it's a remarkable car.
Good. We're glad you're going electric for a car guy. We appreciate that.
And by the way, I think I'll throw the plug in for municipal vehicles. They should be going electric as well. The power that the Tesla demonstrates is that the power is available to be used on commercial vehicles as well. Buses, trucks, dump trucks, plows. That technology is there. So I would push for that as well. And the nature of municipal vehicles is they start and end their day at the same yard. So they're not over the road vehicles that need to worry about where they're going to recharge every evening. So
Sure.
Municipal vehicles lend themselves well to electric vehicles.
Great. Do you typically bring reusable bags to the grocery store?
Yes. In fact, if anybody wants reusable bags, we have Ed Smyth for town supervisor bags, boxes of them, because we were going to give them out at the Huntington Fall Festival, and it rained on Sunday, so we have tons of these things. But yes, I do, and I'll keep it short. Yes.
Thank you. Do you usually carry a reusable water bottle with you on the campaign trail?
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, we'll send you one.
Okay, I'll be happy. That's my fault, because I will tell you, I lose those things so fast. It's but I'll be happy to take one.
All right. What's your favorite park?
Heckscher.
Okay, great.
That's an easy question for Huntington.
It's our central park, and
Yeah.
it just so happens my law office is directly across the street from it. So when I'm having a bad day, I go talk to the ducks in Heckscher Park.
There
When
you go.
That sounds quacky.
Oh, but that sounds like a Josh Kleinberg joke.
So-
All right, with that, I'm going to move back to our panelists. So this time around, Mariah gets to ask the first question.
All right, here we go. The climate crisis disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities. And there's really a once in a generation opportunity to address the intersecting crises of climate change and economic inequities. How do you plan to work with local nonprofits, workforce development organizations, and local labor to address these growing inequities in our communities?
Well, to begin with, the inequities that you see are typically in density. When it comes to housing, is you see that the most underserved areas of our town are usually the most densely populated areas of the town, and this has come up on for years in Huntington specifically. That Huntington Station, for example, it does not get the attention that it needs. It doesn't get the capital investment that it should have, and there's a host of reasons, but I go back to one that I've been harping on for years, and it fits into this conversation, and that is, and I mentioned it earlier, is a sewer line, because there will be no capital investment into Huntington Station without a sewer line. It's just that simple. It'll never, no construction will get approved in Huntington Station unless it's on sewers, because the Suffolk County Department of Health will not approve it. It's just it's very simple. So as far as getting capital investment, which I think is going to be one of the driving forces in equity, is getting capital investment into underserved communities. The way you do that is to provide the infrastructure necessary that will attract that kind of investment, that will attract businesses to that area. And our area in Huntington that's underserved the most, it lacks a sewer line, and that's what's going to be the catalyst for development in that area that will bring those jobs that people desperately need.
Great. Next up, we have Eric. Eric,
Sorry, guys. Just had to unmute here. So this question will be a little simpler, Councilman, but all the more also important. So it's pedestrian safety and bike safety in the town. Through the coronavirus shutdowns, more town residents were out walking, biking in the communities, for physical health, mental health, and to support local businesses. So that was wonderful. We see that trend continuing. The roadways in Huntington, however, are incredibly dangerous to walk and bike, largely due to the physical design. Everybody likes to blame, the individual driver, but there's a problem with the design of our roads. So how would you work with the highway department? Understand that's different division, but still important, to improve pedestrian and bike safety. And you have a traffic safety department within the town, obviously. So employ traffic calming projects and reduce crashes in the town for folks of all ages.
Well, the first thing I would start with is more sidewalks. I think there are some key roads that are major arteries that are close to our downtown areas that surprisingly don't have sidewalks, or if they do have sidewalks, the sidewalks are oftentimes just asphalt strips that are put up on a grass area that are riddled with roots. So to get pedestrians out of the roadway, I would start with sidewalks as an infrastructure project. But that brings me to a little tangent. But we did have a sidewalk project that I voted against in Huntington, and there's a very specific reason. It was on West Hills Road, but the money that was used for that sidewalk project was taken out of the ESPA fund in Huntington. The ESPA is the Environmental Open Space Preservation Act, or Parks Act, which it's our environmental trust fund, and that trust fund often grows to hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars a year through a public referendum where it takes a few dollars from every tax bill to fund it. And we had sidewalks and a traffic calming problem issue on West Hills Road, that in order to pay for it, went into the environmental open space fund to pay for it. So part of the problem with this issue is it always comes back to who's going to pay for it. And the one thing I wouldn't do is start invading environmental money to pay for new parking lots or new sidewalks to do that. I would squarely lay that at the feet of the highway department, which is what I said at the time, and I would continue to do that. The reason why it happened, quite frankly, I don't want to get into the highway department. They have their own campaign going, but I will say that unfortunately, in the last couple of years, I think the highway department the budget was grossly mismanaged. I'll give a plug for Andre Sorrentino to support him, but the highway department's budget was mismanaged, and they were looking for money anywhere to do it. So, but as far as traffic safety, one of the most important things you do is trim back the roads and the trees and bushes on the sides of the roads, more sidewalks, and trim back trees. They're a huge contributor to traffic problems, traffic collisions, and roadway cyclists and pedestrians getting hit.
Okay, our next question is going to come from Adrian.
Councilman, this question is right up your alley because you've been talking about sewage infrastructure from the moment you gave your opening, presentation. Our organization are big proponents of expansion of sewers where appropriate, as is Eric's. In fact, Eric and I have done, and Julie, we've done a lot of lobbying together, our three organizations, on expanding existing sewer infrastructure. And you may or may not know, but reducing excessive nitrogen into the local harbors is a critical need in order to improve water quality. You spoke about upgrading the sewer treatment plant. You spoke about upgrading stormwater infrastructure, but we also need to talk about upgrading septic systems, because even if or when the sewer treatment plant in Huntington is expanded, and they already do some good denitrification technology on that STP, we're still going to have septic systems left in Huntington. So the question to you is that there are many areas in Huntington still using septic systems and cesspools. Suffolk County has a terrific replacement program where they're giving $20,000 per homeowner as grants to residents to replace those systems. What will you do as the town supervisor to work with Suffolk County to help homeowners replace old polluting septic systems for the new innovative nitrogen reducing IAs that are currently available?
Well, I would certainly encourage new construction to employ that technology, and for existing homeowners to adopt it as well. My only concern with that program is, and I do believe that these septic systems are far superior to the old ones that we have. My concern with them is the unintended consequence of the homeowner not maintaining them properly, which is one of the concerns that has been raised in the past about them, that if there is ongoing maintenance that is required on some of these systems, that there would have to be an ongoing maintenance plan that the homeowner would have to keep up with. And one of the concerns I have is that didn't get done. So it would be a twofold thing. It would be encourage homeowners to use the program, and then have some type of a follow-up system to make sure that the system is being maintained properly, so it doesn't make the problem worse where the system isn't doing anything in terms of filtration. But I would definitely encourage that the use of the new technology. I would work with the county to tap into whatever grant money is available, and perhaps even encourage the town to put some money towards the installation costs as well, because that's an added cost. But also on the sewer line, the sewer plant issue. I would one of the things, and by the way, I never imagined 4 years ago I would ever learn this much about sewer systems, and I didn't know much about sewer systems. Now I feel like
we know how you feel.
Like I can't believe how much I know about sewers at this point. But hey, it's part of the job. But I think that the sewage treatment plants themselves, we have this idea that of these large fields of pools being treated. Whereas, the modern sewage treatment plants are getting smaller and smaller, more efficient, and most importantly, less obtrusive to the olfactory glands in the neighborhood. They don't smell as bad as they once did because they're not these open pools anymore. So I would encourage or look into the idea of having very localized sewage treatment plants and sewer systems where you don't have 2 or 3 very large scale centralized sewage treatment plants, and then, but rather many more smaller localized sewer treatment plants that treat one neighborhood at a time. Much like, you see them when a new development is developed, like the Greens down in Melville, for example. It has its own sewage treatment plant on site. In fact, it was designed for the Greens based on their own numerical data, but they found that the usage of it is far less than what they planned, and they're out of time. Now I get it. Now I see.
All right, listen, we have time.
Up top.
We have time for all of our panelists to ask one more question, but I'm going to ask them to be super brief, and I'm going to ask you to be very brief. I'm going to give.
I know I'm guilty.
You're only getting 30 seconds for these questions, okay?
Okay. All right. Hold on, I'm going to start my own clock. All right, go ahead. You can cut me off.
Eric, you're up first.
He's
Sorry,
frozen.
guys. All right. So, yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes,
I can.
You hear me? Okay, got it.
Yes.
All right. So, the coronavirus restrictions on downtown small business, they hurt the families, they hurt employees, many of our main streets. I'm sure you're aware of that as a councilman going through the town this last year. So, federal and state programs were slow, very slow to help, and outreach and access to them were limited really to just the well-connected elites and some others. What would you do to help downtown small businesses who were not just hurt from the pandemic, but also many day-to-day onerous regulations from different levels of government? So it's really helping our main streets to keep part of sustainability.
All right. So I am a small business owner. The worst thing I think is, it's the old joke, when people say I'm here from the government, I'm here to help. I think most small business owners like myself, the last thing they want to hear is that the government is your partner. I think what they want to know is that the government is going to open the door. They're going to cut through all the bureaucracy. They're going to make the application processes smooth. Why I said early on that we should be transitioning more towards an IT-based permitting system within the town, not across the board. One of the things that we have done in the town, working with the state, because our 2 major arteries, at least in Huntington Village, out of time, expanding the use of sidewalks for restaurants to make them, that's what they had asked us to do. So we made that happen for them for outdoor dining.
Great. Mariah.
Thank you. My question is, we have a real need to clean our transportation footprint and ease traffic congestion, and that's crucial in addressing our carbon emissions. Are there any alternative and cleaner transportation options that you're looking forward to implementing in the town?
Well, yes, but the first thing I want to do is get more people to use the mass transit system that we have. I have a program that I've put out and been trying to push as much as I can. I call it Cheeks in the Seats, which is to get more people to use our buses. And one of the ways to do that is, and it kind of hit the skids last year, but I want to bring it back, which is to, rather than people paying to get on the bus, have the bus pay people to get on instead. And the way that would work is, right now we have business improvement districts that are major hubs and transfer hubs for the transportation system, like the Walt Whitman Mall, like Huntington Downtown. I would have, instead of a Metro card style where you swipe it, it takes $2 off, you swipe it, it puts $1 on, and then that dollar can be used at any of the shops in the downtown area, any of the restaurants in the business improvement district, any of the shops at Walt Whitman Mall, any of the participating shops in this. And I think that's a way to get people out of their cars and onto mass transit, which I think is step one. And after that, we like I said earlier, we would address the technology in the vehicles themselves and go towards electric vehicles.
Great. And last, before we move on to your closing statement, Adrian.
Mine will be quick. Climate change. We can't have an environmental discussion without a question about climate change.
Yes.
So, Councilman, what would you do in the town of Huntington? If you could just list quickly 3 things, what would you do to make the town more, to help in the battle against climate change?
More solar energy, more wind, more electric vehicles.
Yeah,
That
I'm not
was
sure you can
very
do wind.
efficient.
Okay.
The wind one is, the wind's iffy, but I would do it if we could. I mean, I know
Fair
we,
enough.
I know that we had one windmill in the town of Huntington. It was up on Jericho Turnpike. It's now an orthopedic office, but by Target, but that used to be a windmill up there.
All right. Well, thank you
Yep.
for answering all of our questions. We give you an opportunity to give a closing statement. You have 2 minutes once again.
Oh, well, thank you everybody for this discussion. I truly appreciate it, and I'm going to use my 2 minutes. I'm not going to run through the happy talk of me as a candidate. I'm going to talk about one issue that is I've been pounding on this entire campaign: garbage. Okay, solid waste management. It's something that is a crisis on Long Island that very few people are talking about, and it has to get on the front burner for everybody. And that is because right now the process is the garbage is picked up at your curb. It gets trucked out, at least in Huntington, to the Covanta plant. It's a waste to energy burn plant, but that burn plant creates ash. That ash is then trucked out to the Brookhaven landfill and deposited there. The problem is the Brookhaven landfill is closing in 2024. The next closest landfill is in Western Pennsylvania. That's closing in 2026, I believe. After that, the next closest place to deposit the ash is in Ohio. So the garbage crisis that we have on Long Island is what to do with garbage ash. And right now, there are currently no industrial uses for this ash. There's going to be no economical or no environmentally sound way of transporting this ash off of Long Island. It is a crisis that we have to start addressing now. The way we have to do it is by, number one, reducing by tonnage our solid waste. We have to start recycling more. We have to go to manufacturers and reduce packaging. We have to reduce we have to implement an organic waste recycling stream. I know New York State is implementing it for commercial businesses come January 1, but we have to expand it. We'll see how they work out. But all of these things have to happen to start moving the needle down by the tonnage of what we produce in solid waste. Because if we don't, in 2024, everybody's going to have a very, very rude wake up about how much garbage we produce on this island. So that's my closing statement.
I know, Ed, that's terrific.
Sorry to be a buzzkill at the end on a happy note, but I'm sorry, but that's the real issue on Long Island that we have to address immediately. A lot of the other things they're aspirational, but immediately addressing our garbage and solid waste problem on Long Island is a critical concern.
Okay, well, whoever is town supervisor next, I can assure you that Adrian and I will be following up with you on that, because those are two of our favorite things. And I wrote that law for the food waste, so we're very excited to see them.
Yes, no, it's
And I lobbied to get it passed.
Yeah, exactly.
Excellent. Well, thank you for doing that, and it's something that I want to see how the state works it out. Let them do the heavy lifting, but piggybacking onto it at the local level, I think, is absolutely critical, because.
There's a lot to be done. There's a lot to be done for individuals as well as for towns themselves. So.
Food is heavy, and everything is by weight.
You got it. And you can manage it locally.
Yep.
Great, Ed. Thank you so much. We appreciate your time here tonight. We are going to move on to our next candidate.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much. So next, Rebecca, are you here?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Great. We have Rebecca Sannon. So Rebecca, why don't you introduce yourselves? We have you 2 minutes, and then we'll turn it over to questions.
Absolutely. So thank you all for inviting me here today. My name is Rebecca Sanin. I'm running because I love this town, and unlike my opponents, I've not been in elected office and had the opportunity to fix many of the challenges that we're facing today, and they are quite significant. As a longtime social justice leader, environmental justice is something that is very important to me personally, and I've spent my career fighting for underserved communities and for equity and for human dignity, which is something that dovetails very closely to environmental protection. I won't spend my time talking about my credentials, because certainly you could look it up. And I am certainly a very seasoned executive, but I want to talk about what matters to you and where I stand on some of the issues. Pesticides are something I'm very concerned about. One of the things I will do as supervisor is ban the use of Roundup
on all town properties and parks. But hand in hand with that is a strategy and a training for employees and for the community on organic, natural lawn care. I think we have to work very hard when we talk about sewers, which is really important. We also have to work hard on water conservation issues that impact sewer treatment of the chemicals that it's treating for, and that's really important. We have to address sea rising, extend bulkheads, because environmental issues tie right into disaster planning and disaster mitigation, and climate change is something we have to plan for. We have to address dog waste and really educate the public and put receptacles near our waterfronts. We have to address waterfront revitalization, because at the end of the day, we need to do everything we can to help our younger generations to fall in love with the environment, because children will only save what they love. And we have a responsibility in government to make those opportunities available. And so there's a lot of other things I could talk about, but those are some of my priorities, and making sure we study either with Stony Brook or DOH what the real cause of our contaminants are in the North Shore waters, in our bays and our harbors. So we have a strategy that's data driven and really pursuing environmental justice. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Our first question comes from Adrian Esposito.
Sure.
Hi, and welcome, Rebecca. We appreciate you being here tonight.
My pleasure.
The first one is kind of a softball. And if you could please start your answer with either a yes or a no, I think that would be great. So the Northport Harbor Water Protection Committee was established in 2010, and it was established as an avenue to bring together lots of different layers of government to facilitate restoring the water quality in the Huntington Northport Harbor complex.
Mm-hmm.
The co-chairs are the Huntington Town Supervisor and myself. We accomplished a lot, actually, for restoring water quality in Northport Harbor, but unfortunately, the Protection Committee has been dormant for about 4 or 5 years now. Would you commit to reinvigorating the committee so we could go back to our meetings? We were having them quarterly, and we would like to know if you would commit to reestablishing the meetings and having them on a more routine basis so we can get back to the game plan of restoring water quality even further in Huntington and Northport Harbor and Centerport harbors.
Yes, absolutely. I would commit to that. And I've spent time with our Northport mayor and with folks in the community talking about a lot of the issues that you're talking about today. I would certainly reconvene, and I would also increase frequency of meetings. I think the dismantling of this committee is an example of how town hall runs today, and distinguishes me as a candidate, because my administration will always be collaborative. I'll always seek to work together, and I'll always be very clear about where I need guidance and I need advisory opinions, and where we bring in experts, whether it's on the environment or other issues, to make sure that we're making decisions together, hand in hand, that are best for the environment. So yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Great. Our next question will be from Eric.
Yes. Hey, Ms. Sannon, great to have you here. So this one question I think you might be familiar with, it's the need of affordable housing. So look, the exodus from New York City due to coronavirus regulations and public safety concerns has ratcheted up the cost of housing that was already unaffordable for most working people in the town of Huntington. And please be specific on this. What strategies, policies, plans, and zoning, or any projects you would think of approving, would you put in place to directly increase the affordable housing stock in the town of Huntington?
Thank you for that question. And I will tell you, in my current role as a CEO of a nonprofit organization, one of the biggest calls we get, quite frankly, is for folks seeking affordable housing. And there's the dearth of affordable housing is, of course, not just a Huntington issue, it's a regional issue. And of course, our segregation on Long Island complicates that and adds complexity to it as well. Look, I think there's a bunch of things that we need to do. One of the things that Huntington is reasonably progressive in is the ADU capacity. So we allow for accessory dwelling units in people's homes, which provide an affordability opportunity, also help people who own their homes, often are seniors who are sort of what I call house rich and liquidity poor, to stay in their homes by getting an extra income. The problem is we have a building department that is completely broken and non-functional. So I've been knocking on doors well over, I think over 6,000 now doors across the township. And I hear from folks all the time who want to put in accessory apartments, but can't get through the process with the building department. So they sort of give up, and that takes away from our affordable housing stock. So I would fix the building department, and I would do everything I could to make people aware of the opportunity and address it. I think the other thing that's sort of cutting edge that is on the horizon potentially that I would like to explore is, with the new Medicaid redesign waiver. We know housing is a social determinant of health. When people lack affordable and stable housing, it impacts their health outcomes, which then end up costing our healthcare system dramatically. So looking for ways to partner with managed care organizations, quite frankly, to look at affordable building opportunities. This is something they've done, some managed care organizations have done throughout the country. And then working with groups like yours, Eric, to identify opportunities. Sewering is a big part of this. We need to sewer Huntington Station, but unlike my opponent, Mr. Smith, I feel very strongly that we don't decide that affordable housing is only going to exist in Melville. Affordable housing is something we need to look at throughout the 98 square miles of our town to meet the needs of its residents.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Mariah Dignan.
Thanks, and thanks, Rebecca, for joining us tonight. Long Island is poised to play a central role in the burgeoning offshore wind industry. And as the Build Back Better agenda is being passed on the federal level, what are your priorities in supporting a clean energy economy with good union jobs as supervisor?
Yeah, so first of all, I am very fortunate not just to be Sierra Club endorsed, but endorsed by many of our unions, most of our unions, and certainly the LI Fed on Long Island. And part of the reason for that is I don't believe that economic development is about bricks and mortar. It's about good jobs. It's about fair pay. It's about community benefits. When it comes to offshore wind, am I supportive? Absolutely. Is when we talk to our friends who, in other towns who are currently looking into this, I think the Huntington Town Supervisor has a role to be a diplomat and to work with other municipalities and look at ways that we can learn from each other and share from each other. But I absolutely support offshore wind. I think we need to look at our fleet very carefully and look at ways to incentivize not just our own fleet as a township in terms of electric fleet, but also when it comes to development, when it comes to the code, when it comes to requirements of developers requiring electric chargers, and looking at other ways that we can, address, emissions from doing that. I think we need to, there's just so many things that we need to do to really advance this agenda, but I absolutely support offshore wind.
Great. I'm going to do a quick lightning round before we move on to the rest of our questions. Do you compost?
Well, so I should tell you, I'm a vegan, so there's lots of banana peels and things like that in my house. I do, yes.
Good. What is your preferred mode of transportation around Long Island?
So I live in Huntington Station, so I don't live in a community that's super walkable, but I'm a big walker. But when I'm not walking, I generally do drive my car.
Do you typically bring reusable bags to the grocery store?
I do. I usually don't bring enough because I'm terrible at remembering exactly how many I need, and I often get in and buy more than I anticipated buying, but yes, I do.
Great. Do you carry a reusable water bottle with you on the campaign?
It's like with me everywhere. I always say if I wrote a book, it would be part of, it would be like the adventure of my water bottle, because I have 3 of them and they're always nearby.
Great. And what is your favorite park?
Well, that depends on what the purpose is. So there's a small park on Depot Road in Huntington Station that's really fun for sledding. There's Heckscher Park that is really wonderful for walking around and seeing the geese and relaxing. And then Crab Meadow Beach and Park is, I think, one of the most beautiful places in our township.
Okay, great. We're going back to our panelists, Mariah, to ask the next question.
Perfect. And I love your purple water bottle. It's my favorite color. The climate crisis disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities.
Sure.
And there really is a once-in-a-generation opportunity to address the intersecting crises of climate change and economic inequities. How do you plan to work with local nonprofits, workforce development organizations, and the labor movement to address these growing inequities in our communities?
Yeah, no, this is such a good question, and something that I think people are not talking anywhere nearly enough about. I mean, climate change means that the 100-year storms that, were 100-year storms are now very frequent. It means that our summers are hotter, and our winters are more harsh, and this impacts our low-income communities and underserved communities disproportionately. And we need to plan for that for lots of different reasons, but one of them being that, communities that are struggling before a crisis end up really falling into crisis. Certainly, we saw that in COVID-19. We saw that in Superstorm Sandy. They take longer to recover and require a real navigation through the complexity of programs for recovery. So a lot of different things need to happen. I mean, disaster planning is not something we should be doing in the middle of a disaster. It needs to happen on blue sky days, right? That we're planning to address the issues that happen when there's a disaster. We need to work with communities and nonprofits to make sure information about safe practices are in that there's language access so that communities can access the information. So often our community communication strategies in government are not accessible to folks. We need to address blight in the town. We have I live in Huntington Station. There's really significant issues around properties that are not cared for that end up bringing in rodents and other kinds of infestations that are really dangerous, particularly for young children when it comes to asthma. One of the reasons why COVID-19 was so prevalent in Huntington Station was not just the overrepresentation of essential workers, but because of the lack of affordable housing, families smushed together, 5 families sharing one bathroom. So who can quarantine when there's a crisis? We have to address the overuse of gas leaf blowers and really look to incentivize electric, because I think particularly as people have been working from home, they've become aware of the air quality and quite frankly, the water quality issues as folks send stuff down the storm drains. And we need to really invest in a strong strategy that addresses climate change, inequities, and of course, working with nonprofit organizations, which are my heart and soul.
Next will be Eric.
Sure. Hey, Rebecca. So yeah, this one just on pedestrian and bike safety and our dangerous roads in town. Through the coronavirus shutdowns, more town residents were out walking, biking in our communities for physical health, mental health, and to support local businesses. And we see those trends continuing. So that's all good. The bad news is the roadways in our town, however, are incredibly dangerous to walk and bike, largely due to their physical design. A lot of people want to just blame someone speeding, but there's a design issue. So this points to, and it's a bipartisan thing. There's blame on the highway department, there's blame within town hall and traffic safety. We've not seen a lot of progress here in this town. So how would you work with your highway department to improve pedestrian and bike safety, employ traffic calming projects, and reduce crashes in the town for folks of all ages?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting, Eric. One of the things that surprised me knocking on doors is how many people are talking to me about road safety. It's really prevalent, and not just from bikers and walkers. Even just folks talking about, their children waiting at the bus stops and just the traffic and the dangerous conditions of our roads. So I think number one, sidewalks are really important. I believe that, there's a lot of opportunity all across the 98 square miles of our town to add sidewalks. Certainly in Huntington Station, there's numerous opportunities. My opponent has not always supported them, but it's certainly something that I would support. And I think it's a lot about looking at the data. I'm very data driven. And so looking at where our roads are most unsafe and prioritizing them, right? Because as much as we want to work with our highway department, we need to go after grants. We need to do, more than just work with our highway department if we're going to appreciably impact this. So look at dangerous stops, for example, and figure out, does this intersection, is it better served if there was a roundabout, for example? Really looking at environmental design is something that I believe very strongly impacts public safety in numerous ways, including crime, right? Crime prevention through environmental design is a tried and true strategy. And it's not so different when we're talking about road safety, figuring out what we need to do to change traffic flow. Sometimes it's, taking a road and making it one way, that's two way, because we need to address, size issues and capacity issues to keep people safe. Bike paths are really important to people. It's something I hear about a lot at the doors, but I don't think there's a one size fits all strategy. Every hamlet of our town has a different design. Quite frankly, the roads are different sizes, the opportunity is different, and we need to work with, again, organizations like yours and the folks on the phone to figure out what are some of the best strategies we can come up with working together. And then how do we attract federal dollars and state dollars and grant dollars to do some really innovative work to help our communities be healthier and safer.
Thank you. Our next question will come from Adrian.
Great. Well, one of the biggest challenges we have right now to water quality in the surface water environment, the marine environment, is nitrogen loading. And that excessive nitrogen loading comes mainly from septic and cesspools that are old and antiquated, and to a lesser degree, sewage treatment plants. The sewage treatment plants in Huntington, both the Huntington Town one and the Northport one, both have pretty good sophisticated denitrification technology. But we have lots of septics and cesspools that need to be replaced. What would you do as Huntington Town Supervisor to work with both the County of Suffolk and the Long Island Sound office to implement the septic replacement program, which allocates $20,000 per homeowner to replace the old septic systems with the new innovative technology that treats nitrogen?
Great question. I mean, I'd say, first of all, I need to restore people's faith in our local government, because I think one of the reasons why people don't take advantage of opportunities right now is the lack of accessibility and the lack of transparency. So folks need to know that working with their local government can be a successful and stressless operation. That's point number one. But point number two is, again, the supervisor has to be a fierce advocate for the town. The supervisor also needs to be a diplomat. So working closely with our county executive, working closely, with the community, I believe very strongly that most people want to do things that are good for their environment, but they're not properly educated. They don't know what the process is. And particularly in something like this, which is really like internal, home infrastructure, they're afraid. And so a strong public education program that shows people how this can be a flawless process, that gives people the opportunity, and again, communication strategies in 2021, I think, Eric brought up COVID-19. People are much more reliant on digital media than they used to be. So making sure we're pivoting to provide that education in the community in multiple ways.
Thank you.
Absolutely. I love these
Great.
questions.
For our last round of questions, we're asking folks to be a little briefer.
Sure.
But Eric, why don't you go first?
Sure. So this one is really in the form of sustainability about our downtown business districts and small businesses that inhabit them. The coronavirus restrictions on downtown small businesses, they hurt families, they hurt employees, and many of our main streets. Federal and state programs were slow to help, and outreach and access was very limited to really just the well-connected and many elites. A lot of people did not know about these programs. What would you do to help downtown small businesses who are not just hurt from the pandemic, but also many day-to-day onerous government regulations?
Yeah, so such a great question. I'm going to have a hard time being brief. So first of all, as president and CEO at the organization I run, one of the first things I did with our nonprofit executives was to bring people together to learn how to apply for PPE loans, economic injury disaster, how to revamp human resource policies to reflect the new times. The town didn't do that with the businesses in our town, and that was a missed opportunity. We need to continue to provide that support. We need to look at space differently, Eric, because to your point, it's not just COVID-19. Amazon had a huge impact on retail. So helping bring businesses and landlords together to say, if you have one storefront, can it be an indoor farmers market and retail, and then create, the opportunity for thriving success. I think we need to reduce and relax many of our permit fees. I've spoken to businesses that are getting signed permit fees with late fees in the middle of the pandemic. I don't think that's helpful. We need to revitalize our waterfront and add a trolley into the downtown so people coming in can visit and spend their money locally. And there's so many other ideas I have, but I'm out of time. I don't want to get yelled at.
No worries at all. Mariah.
The need to clean our transportation footprint and ease traffic congestion is really crucial in addressing our carbon emissions. Are there any alternative and cleaner transportation options that you're looking forward to implementing as supervisor?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started to say it on the last question. I mean, one of the things we need to do, I talked to folks, for example, I was recently in Centerport talking to a group of older women who were saying they don't even try to go into the village anymore to spend their money at restaurants because it's just so impossible to park because of congestion. And so that's impacting us on an economic basis, it's impacting us on an environmental basis. So I think we need to look at models nationally. I'm a big fan of not reinventing the wheel, but looking at what is successful in communities that mirror ours and bringing them to our community. So I think there's an opportunity to use trolleys differently in our town, quite frankly. And I know there have been attempts to do it before and it hasn't been done in a way that has excited people, but certainly between our North Shore, the shorefront and the village, implementing trolleys so people don't drive back and forth, looking at our fleet, looking to, build incentives for folks to have an electric fleet in the township, but also, looking ways to incentivize that for homeowners and car owners as well. These are just some of the things I would do, but there's many more.
We can give you another minute if you did want to say anything more on that.
Just walkability was the other thing I was going to say. I mean, I think we have to look at, when we talk about development, when we talk about live, work, play models, how we can, create sustainable communities that require less use of vehicles. Looking at workforce housing, for example, and helping people to operate and live their lives without the overuse and over-reliance on vehicles that we see today.
Great. Thank you so much. And Adrian.
Climate change. What would an environmental discussion be without a question about climate change? Just quickly name 3 things that you feel you can do as Huntington Town Supervisor to have the town participate in reducing, carbon dioxide emissions and helping to fight climate change in the state of New York.
I only get 3. Come on.
Yes,
okay.
Only 3 right now because Julie asked us to do this one quickly.
So obviously,
she's got time. She's got time. We were running a little tight on that last segment.
Certainly, as I said earlier, banning Roundup and harmful pesticides from use on town properties. Working with there are water conservation tools that exist today to people way overwater their lawn, right? They way overwater their lawn, and then that impacts
this is specifically about climate change.
Okay,
and emissions.
I'm sorry. Okay,
that's
I'm
okay.
Sorry. Okay, I'm getting all. There's so many things.
I know. It's been a long night so far.
So many things that I want to do. Look, I think there's a lot of things that we have to do, and I would say, the electric fleet is, working on getting an electric fleet, I think is really important. And I also think looking just at our fleet generally and how it, how we're making decisions, how we're traveling throughout our town, looking at traffic patterns, looking at what we're expecting of our town employees, because we have so many, is something that's really important to me. I think we have to look at green, green codes in building. I think we need to look at electrical stations as part of requirements when we're working with developers. So there's a bunch of things along those lines that I'd like to study. I think there are so many more opportunities than I am currently aware of. So it's something I would also like to spend time educating myself on, but I really want to have a climate change, I hate to say the word combat, but maybe climate change combat policy in the town, where we're taking very serious steps towards it. I think a lot of times you hear people talk about things. The difference between myself and many people who are running is what I'm saying to you is really about building a plan and a bigger strategy to address all the environmental issues where I think the town has a carbon footprint and an opportunity to improve outcomes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you so much for answering all of our questions. We now have an opportunity for you to give us 2 minutes of a closing statement.
Sure. So listen, I want to first thank you for what you do every day and for what I know, if I have the privilege of being elected, will be a strong partnership. And I will certainly come to you and lean on you to educate me about opportunities and help me to make them happen and to implement them. What I will tell you is that I am a person who gets things done. For me, I am running for office because I've watched my town be mismanaged, and it's a town that I, deeply love and feel very strongly that it needs a strong, seasoned executive in place who's going to really implement metrics, really implement a data-driven decision-making strategy, put a state-of-the-art 311 system in, for example, so that we can really track what the issues are that are impacting our residents and make sure responding appropriately and responsively and thoughtfully. COVID-19 really, from an environmental perspective, I think gave everybody a deep breath, because as everything paused and we saw dolphins come back and we saw, birds, that we hadn't seen in years, and we started to see our environment come back, people were so taken by it. And it's a moment in time from an environmental perspective that we can't lose, because people have been connected in a way that they haven't been before. Their outdoor environments have become more important to them. And so I think we have to use the opportunity to educate folks. When you go to Centerport, for example, where you have the eagles and you have, extraordinary aquatic life, I think we need to do things like you see in other places where, you have information about the birds and you have information about the fish, and people can learn about the extraordinary natural resources that we have. And we need to recognize that they are our greatest assets. And protecting, whether we're talking about affordable housing or any kind of future strategy, if we're not hand in hand talking about the environment, then we're failing future generations. And so I will be a strong environmentalist, and I will be laser-like focused on making sure we use an environmental lens as we're making many kinds of decisions across the town. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to speak with you tonight.
Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it, and we look forward to what happens next in the election. So thank you so much for sharing with us your vision on the environment for the town of Huntington.
I really appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Thank you.
Great. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You as well.
Thank you. We have one more candidate. We are joined by Eugene Cook. So Eugene, the format we're doing is we're having you do a brief introduction of yourself for 2 minutes, and then we'll have each of our panelists will ask them a question. I'll do a lightning round, and then we'll come back and panelists will ask some more questions. So with that, you have 2 minutes to give everyone an introduction.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me tonight. I'm running for town supervisor on a stop lifeline, row F, and looking for your support. The end result is that we need to do better in the town of Huntington, both environmentally, business-wise, and for our future, for our children's future, and for our grandchildren's future. There are many things that I have said about the environment today and every day, actually. The interesting thing is that I always like to put my money where my mouth is. And so I'd like to say it right out of the gate. I've ordered 2 electric vehicles, actually trucks. For me, I like driving pickup trucks, and I've ordered 2 from 2 new companies that are out there. One was supposed to be delivered in January January this past year, and has been delayed until sometime next year. The other one's supposed to be delivered the year after. We'll see which one gets there first, but they have some great new technologies and really help the environment. So that's what I'm all about. You never hear me say and bang the drum. I don't discourage anybody from speaking or what have you, but I'm a doer. I try to get things done, and that's what I'm excited about and looking forward to doing in the future.
Great. Thank you so much. To ask our first question, we have Adrian Esposito from Citizens Campaign for the Environment.
Good evening, Councilman. How are you?
Good, thank you, Adrian. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. So, but I have to go in the right order. So this is an easy one, I think. It's a kind of a softball, and if you could kindly start out your answer with either a yes or a no, I appreciate it. The Northport Harbor Water Quality Protection Committee was started way back in 2010. And it was started as a committee, and is a committee with all levels of government and stakeholders who come together to restore water quality in the Northport, Centerport, and Huntington Harbor complex. And we've had some really big successes. Unfortunately, the meetings stopped about 4 years ago, largely because the co-chair, which is the town of Huntington supervisor, wasn't engaging. So if you win the Huntington Town Supervisor position, would you as co-chair, the other co-chair is me, reinstitute the regular meeting schedule, which was quarterly, of this important water protection committee that's seeking to restore our maritime culture and our waterways?
Yes. How's
Okay,
that?
good.
The thing is, if I can talk a little bit more about it, is that I've been an advocate for the harbors and doing a lot of things And you can see that in my background of what I've done on the, in my past 10 years on the town board. So the answer is absolutely yes. We can clean the harbors quickly. We just need some good leadership to do that. And that's been, and that's why I'm running, because we haven't seen good leadership in the past 4 years.
Thank you.
Great. Our next question comes from Eric Alexander from Vision, Long Island.
Hey, Councilman, good to see you. So this question really on a topic I'm sure you've dealt with at the town for years, affordable housing. The exodus from New York City due to coronavirus regulations and public safety concerns has ratcheted up the cost of housing that was already unaffordable for most working people in the town of Huntington. So I ask you to be specific in this area. What strategies, policies, plans, or zoning would you put in place to directly increase the affordable housing stock in the town?
So what's happened is that I was at a debate not too long ago. There you are. You're looking good. How you doing?
Right.
The end result is that in affordable housing, when I did this 10 years ago, the lowest price house in Huntington was $89,000. It is now $399,000, and you can't move into it. It's a problem, and so the affordable housing goes up. The housing prices go up because people are trying to get into the town of Huntington. Right before COVID, maybe about 6-8 months before COVID, a developer came to me and we sat down at town hall with the supervisor Lubinacci's staff, and I told him that we could give him the Rotundo property over on New York Avenue, and he came back with a proposal for us, and to build affordable housing in a apartment house that could walk right out to the train tracks, use the south parking garage. That would, you want to put a second level in there, maintain it for 99 years, do a lease. I told him I would make it so if we had the plans, we could put it out there, and when we put it out for an RFP, whoever was the highest bidder would be able to come in, pay for it, and walk out with permits. Now, that's pretty amazing, and that's from my business background of putting these things together. The interesting thing is, guess what they wanted to give us for that property? I'm asking you, Eric. Go ahead.
No, I know the property, but I'm not going to get into numbers. So, yeah, I think there's a time limitation here too. So, carry on.
No problem. The interesting thing is they were looking at $29 million to the town, okay? And they're putting up a beautiful building, have affordable apartments in it, and easy access to the train stations. That's what you have to do about outside of the box. And I'm all for that. And hopefully we can bring those conversations up again after COVID. And everything stopped because of COVID, as you know. So.
Great. So Mariah Dignan from Climate Jobs New York will ask our next question.
Thank you, and thanks, Councilman, for joining us.
You're welcome.
Long Island, oh, sorry about that. Long Island is poised to play a central role in the burgeoning offshore wind industry. And as the Build Back Better agenda is being passed on the federal level, what are your priorities in supporting a clean energy economy with good union jobs at Supervisor?
So again, before COVID, there were groups of people that came to me in regards to wind power off of the coast of actually Rhode Island, and needed a place to bring it onto the North Shore of Long Island. And they were looking at Huntington. Of course, we have Long Island Power Authority. They already went to the Northport Power Plant and were turned down from doing that. We own, the town owns parkland adjacent to that. And because it's parkland, we can't bring it there either. So we were looking at other alternatives to bring it in fairly closely to what we have. And again, after COVID, all that went, sort of silent. But recently, I have been contacted in regards to some of these people that want to do this. And now they're looking at perhaps making solar energy and wind power energy in the landfill. So maybe that can assist us into bringing renewable energy in.
Great. I have a series of lightning round questions, so these should be very brief, although you've been very brief to begin with, so we appreciate your tightness of answers. These are easy though, hopefully. Do you compost?
Yes, I do.
Great. When you go grocery shopping, do you bring a reusable bag?
Yes.
What's your preferred method of traveling around Long Island? Now we know you already referenced the fact that you have an electric truck.
I don't have the electric truck yet, but I do drive my truck probably 98% of the time because I'm doing a lot of mileage each day. But the end result is that I am looking to, and I ordered these trucks 2 years ago. So these are new companies that came out. They have some great technology, very excited for it. And I hope I can, hopefully within the next year, I'll have it. Been saying that, I will tell you this. Due to some of the issues with the administration now, I will not be using a town vehicle. Okay, I will be using my own vehicle, and hopefully that'll be an electric truck.
Great. Do you usually carry a reusable water bottle with you on the campaign trail?
I do.
And what is your favorite park?
Heckscher.
Very popular answer.
Great music, great events, and it's a beautiful park.
I will have to check it out. I have not been there.
Oh, you have to do it. It's beautiful.
Yes. Okay. Moving back to our panelists. Mariah, you are up next.
Thank you. The climate crisis disproportionately affects disadvantaged communities. And there's a once-in-a-generation opportunity to address the intersecting crises of climate change and economic inequities. How do you plan to work with local nonprofits, workforce development organizations, and local union labor to address these growing inequities in our communities?
Plain and simple communication. Without the conversation, you can't get anything done. And the problem is that I've seen in our elected officials that they don't want to communicate. They're always guarded. They're always afraid. Anybody that knows me knows you can have the conversation and we can discuss things. Some of the issues with that are the cost of doing that and how that affects the average person that is living in the town of Huntington. We have to be very careful. And with my 40 years of business background, I think I bring that to the table. So I'm very open to all sorts of changes. It doesn't matter who you are, what you are. I am ready to have those conversations and go at day one. And day one is not January 1st. Day one to me is November 2nd, or November 3rd.
Great. Okay, next up we have Eric.
All right, so this one, pedestrian and bike safety. So through the coronavirus shutdowns, more town residents were out walking, biking in our communities for physical, mental health, and to support their local businesses. And we see that trend continuing. So that's all good. The roadways, however, are incredibly dangerous to walk and bike, largely due to their physical design. I know a lot of people just like to blame individual drivers, but there's a problem with the physical design of these roads. They induce speed. So how, and this is not a bipartisan indictment. This is a bipartisan indictment, you know, whether it be the highway department or the town itself, there's not a lot done in this area in Huntington. How would you work with your highway department to improve pedestrian and bike safety, employ traffic calming projects, and ultimately reduce crashes in the town for folks of all ages?
So I can tell you a little story, and I'll be brief with it. The last board meeting, we had a large group of people coming from Turkey Lane in Cold Spring Harbor, which is an entrance to the Cold Spring Harbor High School. They had some major issues. They wanted a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. The town board voted it unanimously. But I said, with my infrastructure background and heavy highway and road construction background, I thought I had some quick ideas that may work and we could get them done right away. So I asked during the town board meeting for the engineer to meet me on the job on Turkey Lane the next day. We went down there. I told him what I thought would be the adequate solution. And I told him I'd like him to put a resolution together, put that up for the next town board meeting. He called me up later on and said, we don't need the town board resolution. I can do that on our own and we can get it done. So I think this coming week, him and I are going out there to mark out for speed warning devices on the road. That we can, because these people were articulate, they were beautiful, and they all had the same mission. They wanted to have the roads safe. So we can start by that, by slowing the traffic down. You know as well as I do, if you have a 20-mile-an-hour sign or a 30-mile-an-hour sign, nobody's slowing down for that. Okay, they're busy doing their thing. They're not slowing down. But if you have warning devices on the roads, they will slow down. We're going to get that done on Turkey Lane, and those are important. So this is the first step. Like you said in the beginning, the past years of making roads don't help us today. Those are narrow roads. People are speeding. They're going, way too fast. And safety should be paramount for whoever is the next supervisor for the town of Huntington.
Great, thank you. Our next question will be asked by Adrian.
We're going to go back to our marine environment, Councilman. So one of the greatest challenges for all of the harbors and also for Long Island Sound is nitrogen loading, particularly obviously from septic and outdated cesspool systems. Good portion of Huntington is sewered. You have a sewer district, you have a sewer system. Northport has a sewer treatment plant, but a good portion of Huntington is unsewered with the septics and the cesspools. The county has a very robust septic replacement program to use the new IAs, which actually treat for nitrogen and other pollutants. What would you do as Huntington Town Supervisor to help facilitate the county's program to replace old and failing septics and cesspools with the new systems that actually people will get a grant to replace them with for $20,000?
So Adrian, I'll tell you what I've already done. I brought up to the town board a while back that I would like to see any residential home that is doing 50% or more of reconstruction to have those mandated in the reconstruction project. Those are excellent units. And I even went to school and learned how they are operated and used. It's paramount. If we don't do something now, we are going to have major problems. Now, with that being said, our sewage treatment plants are really at good, they're not perfect, but they're very good because we do not have, the red tides and all the other stuff that are going on in other areas of Long Island. And so we do a good job because we remove the nitrogen from our sewage treatment plants before it gets into the water. And so it's not perfect, but as supervisor, I'm going to put a law in, say, if you're doing 50% or more of renovation anywhere, I'd like to see these septic systems put in.
Thank you.
Important. It's really important.
Great. Okay. We have one final round of questions, and Eric is going to start us off.
Great. All right, Councilman. This is on downtown small businesses. So the coronavirus restrictions on our downtown Main Street businesses hurt families, employees, and many of our main streets. Federal and state relief programs were slow to help, and outreach and access was really limited to just really the well-connected and different elites and others. It didn't really reach down to the community the way it should. What would you do to help downtown small businesses who were not just hurt from the pandemic regulations, but many day-to-day onerous government regulations?
Well, Eric, the interesting thing about that is that we already started doing things with that. We started eliminating permit fees and allowed outdoor dining, which I think is really working well. But we've got to expand that. I mean, these restaurants are really hurting. There's some restaurants that I see that are open only a couple of days a week, and where they were open, 6 or 7 days a week. And we need to get the economy moving. So the government's purpose here is to help businesses any way we have to get them up and functioning properly. So one of the things we did last year, which I was very proud of, was closing down Wall Street for the holidays. And that was beautiful. It worked out well. We're doing it this year. We'll see what the difference is because we're sort of on the outside of the COVID virus, let's hope. we'll see what can happen with it. But the problem in any of these areas is that we have state roads, county roads, and town roads. And all of these things come together. We have to get permission from each government entity to get things done. For small businesses, I think what we can do is listen to them and understand where they're coming from and see what we can do to make their life easier. The key thing here is conversation with the businesses. And I think we've been doing a fairly good job of that so far.
Great. Our next question is from Mariah.
Thank you. The need to clean our transportation footprint and ease traffic congestion is crucial in addressing our carbon emissions. Are there any alternative and cleaner transportation options that you're looking forward to implementing in the town?
So the interesting thing is that certainly I want to do all electric. There's no doubt I want all electric. And what we've done in the past, and this came back from the Frank Petroleum administration, we put electric charging stations at the north parking garage for people that could plug in and incentivize them to buy electric cars. We now have that at Town Hall, and I think we need to expand that. We also need to convert our entire fleet into electric vehicles. We can't go, natural gas and electric. There's too many issues with it. We've had too many problems with it. The end result is that we need to see what the latest technology is. And the technology is moving lightning speed now. And so when you have Tesla out there and a number of new companies that are coming up there making automobiles and more environmentally friendly mechanisms for heating and air conditioning and electric transfer, it's huge. And certainly Town Hall is a big issue with that. And Town Hall needs to be upgraded. And we need to do it so it's efficient. But we have to be very careful at the cost of doing it.
Okay. And our final question comes from Adrian.
Okay, so final question, climate change. I'm going to make it quick. Please just name 3 things that you feel you would be able to do as Huntington Town Supervisor to participate in reducing carbon dioxide emissions from the town of Huntington.
Simple, change the fleet to electric. That's a big one. Convert the, so I'll give you a perfect example. We just recently, and I fought for it, had to get some emergency generating power over at Town Hall. And the original quote was for a diesel generator. I was able to work out, exactly, I worked that out, and we've gotten natural gas there. It was more expensive, but it's done. So that will be happening this coming year. And I'd like to convert all of the buildings to natural gas to at least make it a little bit more efficient. And not that it's the end result, it certainly isn't. But if we don't do something now, Adrian, our children and grandchildren are going to have a problem. And it's a priority, and it's good government with a good leader that you can get these things done and move forward with it. But again, the idea of all of this is communication with you guys. And thank you so much for being out there with the new technologies out there, and understand what they're doing and what benefits we can get by bringing those on quicker. And I think that's what I'm looking forward to do in my administration if I'm lucky enough to be supervisor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, you have 2 minutes to give a closing statement.
So I'm running on a line that nobody knows about. I'm fighting Long Island Power Authority. I'm row F on the ballot. My name is Eugene Cook. I've been a councilman for the past 10 years. I've always stood by the people, fought for them, fought over development, fought the wrongs of some of the things that I've seen going on. I will continue to do that in the next 4 years if I'm so lucky to be your supervisor. And I hope that everybody can get out. Early voting starts October 23rd. And I hope that I will be your next supervisor January 1st. With that being said, I want to thank you all. You do a great job, and I do appreciate it. And we have to keep our environment forefront for sure. No doubt, you guys do a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I want to thank all of our candidates for joining us tonight, and for all of you for being here. We hope you learned a few things about the environment, about where our candidates stand in the town of Huntington on the environment. If you tuned in late or you want to rewatch, this video will be up on our Facebook page at facebook.com/nylcv and on our YouTube page at youtube.com/nylcv. Most importantly, be sure to vote. We want you to start voting early. As the councilman just mentioned, early voting starts on October 23rd, runs through October 31st, and election day, of course, is on November 2nd. We encourage you to follow us on @NYLCV on Twitter, on Facebook, and on Instagram for updates about candidates and about Election Day. And if you're not already on our email list, please sign up at www.nylcv.org. I want to again thank our panelists, Adrian Esposito at Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Mariah Dignan from Climate Jobs New York, and Eric Alexander from Vision Long Island for asking the questions we all want to hear about here on Long Island. And thank you so much. We hope you have a great evening and stay healthy. Thank you.